We'll move on to something which we are all very interested in, the tech revolution, and how strong we are in India and our e-commerce. How is that doing? Let's have a look at what Ruchir finds in his research, the cracks in the tech space now. Ruchir, what you found was that 2014, 15, right up to the beginning of 16, the number of unicorns, there's a number of billion-dollar companies, new companies were formed, was really shooting up from 50 to 200 in a matter of 2 years. It was like golden age.
Right.
And now suddenly that's flat.
Yeah, it's plateauing.
It's plateauing.
That's right.
And if we look at what's happening in India and how that's affecting India, there's one positive. We've added 2 more unicorns to that list, although, and that's quite a decent sized list given a comparison with other countries.
Yes.
Shop Clues and Hike are the 2 new ones. But, and this is an interesting you mentioned, the buzz that everybody's talking about are?
Markdowns, down rounds, and shutdowns. What exactly do we mean by this? Because if you look at what's happened over the past year in the tech space across the world, and even in like India, that a lot of the leading companies now have been marked down in terms of their valuations, including some on those.
So markdown is you haven't actually got an investment at that new
but
lower value, but people have assessed that you are.
Yeah, you know, Flipkart, for example, has seen significant markdowns in terms of what it's being valued at by investors across the world. Then down rounds, basically, although this hasn't happened in India as such, but in other countries it's happening, is where you go back to raise money from investors at a much lower valuation than the previous round of funding.
So that's an actual investment.
That's an actual investment at a much lower valuation, which the company has to accept.
You love all this jargon, right?
And third,
but they make sense actually.
This is the buzz. And third is shutdowns, and I think we've seen this in India too. Some pretty significant shutdowns over the last year or so. So in the tech space, like this was one really booming area, the e-commerce and others, sort of areas. We're seeing at least some sanity return out there. There was a huge surge out there.
Right.
And I think we spoke about this trend last year when we did this show, which is the fact that every decade there's some theme which captures the imagination of the world. Right. Last decade it was the BRIC economies.
Right.
The decade before that was all the NASDAQ. Before that was Japan.
Right.
And this decade it was about all these new tech companies captured by these fancy acronyms such as FANG, for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix,
right,
Google.
I remember discussing
exactly.
that, yes.
So did that. Now, I'm not saying this is like sort of completely ending and turning into a NASDAQ type bust, but what we're seeing some signs is that the glow is off a bit, right? I mean, that they're peaking off. Even these FANG stocks did relatively okay this year, but they didn't have those outsized performance numbers we saw for the previous few years. So some cracks we are seeing in the tech space after this euphoria of the last few years.
Right, and it is worrying for India as well, because this is an area where we talk about entrepreneurship and soft power, etc.
Yeah, but globally, this is going on. So again, not particular to India, but obviously like in India too, we're seeing ripple effects of this.